So here we are in the Wuhan corridor. I think this is called Yamchun, something close to that. We're near Rant, so on the very southern point of the Pamir, you've got those two roads, one which skirts the Afghan border, which is here, the river is the border, and then you have the higher road for quicker tours to Mahab, from Karok to Mahab. Anyway, so this is a massive fortified complex, and I say fortified complex because to this day, since, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I don't buy for a second that what we call fortresses or castles were intended for defence. They were purposed, from the off, from scratch, to defend a town or given civilization from potential marauders, essentially. First thing that doesn't make any sense about fortresses, castles, etc., and this is a prime example, is the fact that, let's say marauders do come along, coming from over there, let's say the Mongols are coming, and we've built this, somehow we built this without any electronic, advanced, modern tools. We did it all by hand, men with pickaxes, which is strange because, if you're defending against a incoming civilization and you have the means to build something like this, then you have to have the wealth to attain the materials to build it, and that wealth comes from labour, which is from either agriculture, mining, cattle grazing, but we're talking en masse. If you're building something as fucking magnanimous as this, something so absurdly ginormous, and when I say ginormous, it skirts all the way around here, up to the point that they're developing as a tourist hotspot, because it's the highest point. Then we have this very, very, very deep gorge that I don't want to go too close to, because the terrain here, the shale rock, is unbelievably loose. But you can trust my word, it goes... I want to use a few swear words here, but I'll refrain. It goes very, very deep. And on all sides as well. Over there too. The fortress continues on. This is the third and not even the final plateau, fortified plateau. So we've got the remains of the wall, fortified complex here. This is the third one. We've got the second one that goes around here. It goes for another 400 meters that way. There's actually the second one. It's by this rock. This is all kind of derelict, but it's more prominent on the other side. And then you have the top one up there. But then, on the other side of the ravine, it continues along, and there is another one after this. So we have a lot. Here we go. Here's some remnants on the other side. Look, just absolutely amazing, isn't it? And you've got to think to yourself, what are these people defending themselves from? My point was this, and you're thinking, marauders, they've obviously got wealth, they've got gold, yes, maybe they do have gold. In fact, I've seen a lot of quartz around here, so no doubt there was mining, and to be honest, that's where I'm getting to with this idea, this ludicrous idea that I'm explaining, portraying. How many years would it take to build something like this? And this is the thing with a lot of the fortresses all across the world, all of them in fact. I remember seeing a 17th century fortress, in fact one of the biggest fortresses in Europe. It's in Novi Sad in Serbia, and it said it took them over 100 years to build this fortress. It started in the 17th century and basically continued all the way up until the Second World War, but obviously that was an extension, but the actual process of building the initial construct, which is built perfectly, brick by brick, it's absolutely vast. You could look up the Novi Sad fortress if you want, and now no one lives there, which is often the case with these fortresses, which is also very surprising, isn't it? How many men would it take to do this? Because women weren't doing it, or far less women were doing it, that's for sure, because they would probably be in constant childbirth if we're believing the narratives displayed by our current historians to us in museums of those periods in time. All the women were constantly up the duff, giving birth to children. All the men were labouring for the wealth of the civilization, in gold and agriculture and all this kind of stuff, cattle driving, whatever it is. So how could they afford to, how many men would it take? And again, this is the thing, Jonathan, they were doing it over hundreds of years. Well, if it's over hundreds of years, then it would completely defeat the purpose of defence, wouldn't it? You decide one day, okay, the Mongols are prevalent at this moment in time. We have a big hill, let's start building shit. You would have to pack up everything you're doing and still have 40, 50,000 people working 24 hours around the clock, and then another 40, 50,000 people mining the material, and then another 40 to 50,000 people bringing the material up this fucking hill without any electronic, modern technological advancements whatsoever, and then another 50,000 people fucking agriculture. I'm so pissed off. I've said this 1,000 times. I'm so worked up by this because it's ludicrous. Another 50,000 people out in the fields fishing and fucking, cattle driving and doing all these things to feed this enormous labour force, which is building something which isn't going to enable them to defend themselves against the threat that they perceive they have. The coming civilization, the Mongol army or whatever, the new kids on the block that are destroying everything, they've got wind of it, quite literally, the wind gusts through this valley. Oh my god, the Mongols are coming! Okay, in 50 years this will be ready. It's fucking ridiculous. And then you'll say, okay, well that's clearly not what happened. They would have built something small, and over generations, it would have expanded and expanded. So hence the tiers. Perhaps it was the first tier, the second tier, the third tier, all that stuff. But it still begs the question, if you're a fucking incoming civilization ready to defeat this pending imminent civilization, the Pamiri people, whoever were existing here at the time, why the hell would you bother to come all the way up here and siege this place unless there was something of actual value? Human life isn't value, and especially the most valuable thing is your own life. And if you've got to sit outside this fortress sieging it right up on this peak without hardly anything to feed yourself, because presumably it's all been burned, or the cattle have been brought up here into the fortress for a 3, 4, 5, 6 month length siege. We've got water, so we could sit up here forever. You just fucking pass on through, wouldn't you? Would you waste your time? You just pass on through. I just don't buy any of it, except one thing. You see, everyone looks at these fortified complexes, which they are. I just don't want to call them fortresses and castles because it gives this idea that they were intended to defend, to keep people out. Here's an idea. I think they were intended to keep people in. And what I think these fortresses actually were, these fortified complexes, I've broken my own rule, I honestly think that they were mines. I think there was material here of value, and I've been to so many, you can even see the quartz line there. I've been to so many forts all across the world, so many places people proclaim as fortresses or castles or whatever, some more ludicrous than others, some more plausible than others, mostly unplausible. And what I often see is where they're situated, there are mines nearby, whether it's gold or silver or whatever mineral would have been of value at the time, iron. And that's my belief. I think that's where the value lies. That's where the need for defence lies. The most valuable thing of all has never, ever once been human life. Never once. And that's a really important thing to remember. No one gives a fuck about human life. Human life can be got anywhere you want. If you're a bloody maraudering force, Genghis Khan on his way through, and you want some rapey slaves, you want some food, just keep going, man. Just keep pillaging all the small villages, keep going until you get to somewhere that's, less of a risk, instead of sitting out here in the bloody baking heat for 3-4 months trying to siege this place. Unless, of course, this place has something to offer. And that's where my theory lies. I really do think that this looks like a giant mine. And when you go up there, and I have taken some videos that you can check out on the channel, but it's not really why I make these videos. They're really for my own personal archive. I just use YouTube essentially as a free Dropbox, as I've said many times before. But this is a nice view here. So look at this layer, this tier, sorry. It goes all the way up and we're going around. That's also insane, the fact that presumably they would have had a bridge here at one point. Because on the other side, the fortifications skirt alongside the canyon there, and the canyon there is just as deep, and no one's going to be jumping across that unless there are bridges. And again, a bridge is a fucking monumental engineering project too. And again, why would you bother? Look at this. What are you fortifying there? This is just a tiny jut, tiny jut. If this is the age of bow and arrows, who are you going to be arrowing from there? Just people are going to be swarming, are they, down in this valley? I don't think so. You're not protecting anything. It's not really a good place to put yourself during a siege in case you get cut off. This is one big jut here. There could be some erosion that's taken place, and that's why we're seeing it as it is. But of course, the wall is on both sides, so clearly that's not the case. This is a walled island, if you want to call it that. It's bizarre. And again, I think it's all because it was a mine or a ghetto, some sort of giant concentration camp, and perhaps the prisoners were mining within. That's one theory. The other theory, I think, is more accepted by alternative historians, and of course it's portrayed in numerous, what's the word I'm looking for? Things like the Bible. I can't even think today. Can never think, that's the problem. What's the word? Scriptures, that's it. The Great Flood. And I see this often as well. Things seem implausible if they're situated at a point in history where the water level is much, much lower, right? So like today, the water level's down there. But at one point, which also is we can see just from the geology in many landscapes, if we wander through on a hike, you can often see shells 2,500, 3,000 meters up, where the water level at one point was much higher. Was much higher, I should say. That would make sense. Yeah, if it was really the level of land was, the level of water was closer to the fortified complex itself, it would make a lot more sense. I know this is a bit ranty, but I just see this a lot. Another thing that really bothers me, and again, this is something that's accepted by a lot of alternative historians, rock itself. We call these rocks. There we are. And they come in different forms. Different geologists over many generations have called this a shale rock, this a piece of marble, blah, 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 sandstone, etc. However, a lot of rock, God, that's a bloody prime example. I wasn't even going to take you to that piece, but it's just perfect. Taking some photographs of this. A lot of what we see as rock is just petrified wood. Petrified wood. And just go on Google Images, even though Google is, and all browsers are now super censored, so you can type anything in and you'll get 2 results in the entire world compared to the 2.4 million in the early 2000s, because it's a complete censorship platform. That was what the internet was designed for, to create censorship, to make us reliant on something, and they take away all the resources, and we're left with what has been deemed socially acceptable, what has been filtered. But anyway, so a lot of this rock is actually petrified wood. I mean, even in this example, there's quite a good example here. And you can see it if you go on Google still or YouTube. You can type in what petrified wood looks like. And if you think of what a tree trunk looks like, you put it on its side, it rotted away. Or, this is a perfect example, a log, the actual log of a tree, trunk, rotted out. And you'll often see this going to any forest. You'll just see, it looks exactly like that. Exactly like that. However, there's a better example over here. I'll take some pictures of those ones. Even this. Look at that. Looks like you're in the forest, you see some like rotted wood and you kick it and all fucking maggots and creepy crawlies come out. That's what that is. These are just bits of bark. You can literally just rip them off. Look at this. Just a bit of bark. All of this is tree. It's all petrified tree. And just like a tree, it just crumbles away into muck. That is tree. Not rock, tree. It's all tree. It's all wood. Wood. Great example over here. Where is it? In this old Pamiri hilltop. Where are we? God, even these bits, just all bits of wood. You just flake it off. Just wood. Wood. Where's that great piece? I saw it. There we go. Think of like a bit of crumbling rotten cedar. That is what that is. It's wood. Go into a forest, go into a cedar forest if you're American, California, Joshua Tree or Yosemite or something like that, you'll find a rotten trunk, and you can break it off just like that. It's all bits of wood. Wood, wood, wood. Have I made my point? Good. Wasn't very articulate today. I don't know how I'm going to get over there. I mean, that is fantastic, isn't it? Look at this. Jesus Christ. I wonder how many plebs the Jays threw off there during their dynasty of mining. These were all just giant mine complexes full of prisoners from all over the world. People we call Indians, people that we call Sikhs or Christians or, I don't know, Tartars, Incas, Mayans, you name it, all over the world. The names that we have for those people today, they were all probably enslaved by the Jays. I don't actually believe that bit, but it's possible. Who knows? This could have all been just giant gold mines. But look at this. It's incredible, isn't it? And then it also makes sense, actually, because a lot of these historical structures we find today completely abandoned. I mean, many of them the architecture we see today as being phenomenal, truly phenomenal. I mean, we look at the ancient civilizations of Europe, the two most prominent ones, Rome and Athens, the Greeks and the Romans. Some of that architecture you fucking die for today. Get a grade 2, grade 1 listed property in the UK with something that resembles places in Rome, and you're looking at a couple of million resale value. I mean, aside from the aesthetic appeal, they're gorgeous, they're stunning. Who wouldn't want that? People would, unless, of course, there was plenty of it at the time, unless it wasn't seen as unique or different or novel or special. It was just the way things were constructed. And isn't it strange, that if it wasn't a mine and it was built for defence, why should that end? Well, there's a bit of the history here. I presume some sort of maybe irrigation, drainage. Anyway, if it was for defence and there wasn't something within that you were mining, then surely life would just continue on. Why should the system change? If we're told that the population of the world increases as the years go by, we go from 1 billion to 3 billion to 6 billion to 9 billion in 100 years, then these things would just have ever more value, wouldn't they? I mean, if we're told that this is 1,000 years old, and then the moment society and civilization in this area ceased, it just became derelict. And it's still standing after 1,000 years old. I mean, how many properties in the US after 30, 40 years remain standing in this kind of climate where it goes down to minus 20 in the winter? More than that, where you've got blistering winds, blistering heat, blistering rain, everything. You've got everything here. And yet it still stands. It still stands perched on the edge of this cliff face after being weathered. In fact, with the mud plastering still to be seen in parts on the outside. And yet properties in certain countries can be built today and will be gone in 50 years, right? If it was for defence and there's more and more people and the land still has value, it's still being used today for agriculture. If indeed the land was at the same level and nothing has changed, we're told, nothing really has changed in 1,000 years, then there would be more people. And people would be using this if it was for defence. Instead of looking like this, we'd be plastering over it, we'd be using concrete, there'd be metal, it would be, as we see with World War I or World War II defence projects all across Europe, especially in France, the Maginot Line, we'd just be seeing it upgraded. But no, all of them, whether it's Afghanistan, which is there, or Tajikistan here, or France, or Spain, or the United States, all these old, even the US Civil War forts, we're told, now still completely derelict, of no value whatsoever. It's ridiculous. And you buy this. The historical narrative that they supply us is absolute bullshit. It's nonsense. And the irony is, they try and align history with science, because they use all their measurements and they add dates, and little fucking fake geologists on 20k a year who are part of the Masons Club will go down and say, oh, this is what this is. This is what this is. Take their little money, gets published under some brand name, under some publishing house that's a part of the game plan. And people buy it. It's nonsense. It's fucking nonsense. Oh, yes, there's rock. Yes, no, science and all kinds of microscopes and experience. And my thesis says that this is 17.4 million years old. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. I've been travelling for 12 years and I've been to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these sorts of fortifications alone, let alone all the other historical sites, archaeological sites. And I've never seen people working them, ever. If you go to even the, probably the most famous point in Asia, perhaps in China at least, the Qian, the Great Wall, the Terracotta Warriors, the Great Wall also actually, the Terracotta Warriors, it's bollocks. Everything is sat in a time capsule from the 1950s and 1960s. It's just sat there. Just all the equipment they're using is as it was when it was discovered. Nothing has been added. There's been no extra excavation, just the initial excavation, we're told, and they've just left it. And the excuse they always give, which I find hilarious, by the way, I've just seen something fantastic there. Look at the carving on the outside of that. Look at that. And then my camera's not good, I apologise, I'll take some pictures. Nothing gets touched. And you know what they say every time? Every single time. It's what they were saying at the turn of the century. It's what they were saying in the 1950s, 1960s, and the 80s, and the early 2000s. We want to preserve it for future generations. When technology is more advanced, then we can... really? Well, it doesn't stop them for anything else, does it? Logging all the forests down, digging up ground for gravel and oil, destroying ancient architecture, simultaneously destroying ancient architecture. In the 1970s, 1980s, in the UK in particular, as is the case for many places in the world today, they will dig up a mosaic. They will destroy a building that they say is 150, 200 years old, whilst simultaneously saying for the archaeological site down the road, we don't want to touch it, we want to preserve it. It's bullshit. Come on, guys, wake up. If you're still watching this video, the two people that might be watching it have been able to grit their teeth through my nonsense, my poorly articulated sentences. It's nonsense. It's bullshit. The way the world is, oh God, a couple of keywords you can type in if you're interested in this subject. Resets, mud flood. These sorts of things will get you, I guess, a little bit more interested in the subject if these kinds of things arouse your suspicion. It's all just total bullshit. All of it is nonsense. There's probably a cataclysm at some time. In fact, there was a cataclysm. We know there are cataclysms all the time, even in our life. Tsunamis in Indonesia in the early 2000s. Times that by 50, 60, 70, which is totally possible. Absolutely possible. And we're told there's this portraiture in the National Gallery in London of glacial icebergs, literal icebergs, people skating on icebergs on the River Thames in the 19th century. And then everyone's like, climate change. It's called climate change because climate changes. It's the reality of the world. And they make people believe that, everything that's happening or could happen is novel, it's unique, it's never happened before. No, they understand exactly what's happened before because they understand the world more than we do, because they're the keepers of knowledge, because everything that they teach to kids nowadays is just propaganda. It's just pure indoctrination. And whilst all the rest of the world is being indoctrinated, the 99.9% of plebs that roam around, whether they're bankers on 100k or farmers on a K in their entire life, they're all fucking idiots. All fucking idiots. The distance in knowledge is really not so much between the illiterate labourer and the guy that sits in a HSBC office in Canary Wharf every day and those that have infinite resources. They don't work. They spend every second of every day learning. They are the keepers of knowledge. They are the ones that control absolutely everything. These are the people that understand what's coming, either because they artificially inseminated upon us or they understand the cycles of the world in true form, in the truest form. And this is the result of all of that. Could be part natural, could be a mix of both. It could be the point where society has to turn super authoritarian, where there is a reversion back to, I guess, gold as a currency, and the protection of that resource becomes more prominent than ever before. People get imprisoned like some dystopian novel in big fortresses like this, which at the time would have been made of, would have been constructed in a modern way, a way that would appear as any building does in Europe today, in a big city. Glass, metal and stone. And then of course the natural cataclysm comes along, wipes everything out, petrifies the wood, everything turns and crumbles. Maybe it's a result of some ice age, maybe it's a result of some giant, meteorite, an increase in temperature beyond all comprehension that just turns us to dust, literally. And what we're left with today is what was able to sustain itself through that wildfire, let's call it. Who knows? But what I do fucking know is that guys, labourers, uneducated people in the middle of fucking nowhere, which is what we're told, the official narrative at all times, in all places. This isn't an anomaly. We can probably go 2 hours down that road, every road in the world, and you'll find another fortification of similar stature. And we're told that all of the plebs that work in the fields were at the same time building these things that, from an engineering perspective, with the materials that they had in those days, just fucking magnificent. They're still standing, we're told, if we believe the time frame, which I don't. After 1,000 years, we're told. It's still standing because some plebs with scythes and spades and pitchforks, if that, their bare hands, were being grotty down there in the mud, collecting fucking fish and, banging horses and doing what plebs do. I don't know. The point is, it's bullshit. I hope I've encouraged people to take it upon themselves to research this a little bit more. And if you are keen on unsubscribing, you can just click on my channel name and go unsubscribe. I don't know if it was the madness of my belief that did it, or my mention of the Jays, which puts people on edge. Don't mention the Jays, we'll lose our job. The Jays don't control everything in the world. We're not allowed to say that. Anyway, au revoir.